I was 4 months postpartum in the backseat of my car with my 4-month-old. And then I say under my breath, I want to die. And I meant it.
Gabby Bernstein, a role model for spiritual seekers.
Gabby Bernstein, everyone, is on her 10th birth.
Gabby Bernstein has been hailed as a next-generation thought leader.
When someone's going through a biochemical condition, like postpartum depression or suffering from PTSD, it's like saying F you to them, to just be like, oh, just meditate. In those moments of acute crisis, the meditation's not going to work. I didn't just take the pill and just numb out. I went real deep, 3 therapy sessions a week. It's when you get to that safer baseline, whether it be through medication or maybe something else, you can actually start to really feel the soothing benefits of the meditation. As you start to take note of your triggers, how you feel, and how you run from those feelings, you begin the inquiry of why your patterns are the way they are.
What is your thought on the current psychedelic therapy trend?
But I want to really go on the record saying that
the big silence. It's time to sing.
All right. Hello, Gabby Bernstein. Honored to have a conversation with you. I've been following you and doing your courses for years. I don't know if you know that, but I think the first book I read of yours was The Universe Has Your Back.
yeah, that's a good place to start.
I know how. So, okay, first of all, very excited to have Gabby on here. As you know, this is a mental health podcast, and Gabby has so many amazing conversations surrounding mental health, and that's how she has gotten into spirituality. And I am excited. I've been diving into your new book, Happy Days, The Guided Path from Trauma to Profound Freedom and Inner Peace. I mean, who doesn't need to read this right now?
That's how I feel. I feel the same. I think everybody needs to read that right now. I really do.
Yeah. So did you write this book during the past 2 years?
I did. I sold it in the beginning of March 2020 and wrote it in 2020. Wow. Edited it in 2021.
That had to be a lot. I mean, I could barely get out of bed of parts of time of 2020. For you to write a book, and I've been writing my own memoir for 5 years. It's a tough place to go continuously and to get such heavy work done and talking about trauma and everything like that.
For me, to write is to heal. For me, everybody's got a different path, right? And in my world, in my life, I've written 9 books in 11 years, and every book has healed me.
Yeah.
And I know that if it is soothing and healing to me, then it's going to serve the reader. I know that. I just know that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I did start writing my book too, just as a healing and as a journal almost. But I love your story, and I kind of want to go back there because you have, number one, I want to go back to your childhood because I feel I have some questions about that because you speak about trauma and healing, and I know you were raised in a home that was very homeopathic and spiritual, and you began meditation at a very young age. And then you went into more of a darker phase and addiction. And is there some way that you can explain like what led you to that?
Well, I couldn't actually explain it until I was 36.
Yeah.
So I did grow up with an introduction to spirituality. My mother was a meditator. She brought me to the ashrams. I was named by the gurus and had awareness around it. And I also was brought up with the belief systems of homeopathic healing and meditation. And there's a lot of mantras and incense in my house. And that was a nice spiritual imprint that was planted. And it was helpful to me when I was in crisis, when I got older. But I was really depressed in high school and in college. I was doing a lot of running from that by controlling every area of my life and lived with so much anxiety. And then in my early 20s, I became the president of my own company. And I started a company that I represented nightclubs and restaurants. And I really got hooked into that scene, the party scene.
Oh, I know that scene.
You know that scene, baby.
I was in Hollywood for 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, you look like you're 20. So, okay, something's working here. Okay. So I was really hooked on the drugs and alcohol. I got really hooked on cocaine. And by the grace of God, I was able to get clean and sober at 25 with genuine spiritual intervention, I believe. And in my sober recovery, I started to pick up those spiritual beliefs that I had as a child and very quickly began to publicly speak about them and write about them. And the spiritual practices were the first line of response to my own recovery. But I still didn't know why I was a drug addict. I didn't know why I was a workaholic. I didn't know why I was so codependent until I was 36 years old. And it was in 2016. And I started, at the time, was really cracking into something, but I didn't know what it was. And I was having extreme panic attacks and meltdowns. And within a few months of that, I had a dream. In the dream, I remembered being sexually abused as a child. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, it was the most terrifying moment of my life, but it was also relieving in a way. Mm-hmm. Because now I could sit there and say, oh, that's why I was a drug addict. That's why I was an alcoholic. That's why.
So you didn't have those actual memories, but they came back to you in a dream. And then did you go through therapy to try to draw that out and find out what really happened?
No, my journey in therapy has not been about trying to recover more memories or find out what, because that's not the style I chose. I chose I chose several different therapeutic styles that I put into this book that, while that may be part of the process, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I would say I also, especially when you experience that trauma, you block a lot, because I have experienced trauma and you lose those memories. And I'm not trying to get them back either. I love one of the therapies that you talk about in your book is EMDR, which I have done as well.
Yeah. EMDR is so soothing. I'll explain what it is. And it's also one of the therapies that really doesn't make you go back into the memory. I mean, you could be using it, doing the practice, which I'll explain, on, the fact that you're pissed off at your coworker, and that will help you resolve something that happened in your childhood. So it's all related, first of all. So EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And the premise is that there's bilateral brain stimulation. And when we hold a buzzer in either hand, or have a buzzer in either ear, or watch a finger back and forth and your eyes are moving back and forth, you're stimulating both sides of your brain. And so when you have that bilateral brain stimulation, it actually opens up your brain's window of tolerance to reprocess disturbances, energetic disturbances, belief systems, phobias, particularly in trauma. And so what you would do in the session is you'd pick the target that you're going to work on. And it does not have to be the original inciting incident. It can be, I'm outraged at my partner right now, and this because they did this XYZ thing. And you just focus on the target and you notice it in your body, and you just talk about it if you need to, or you feel into it while you have this stimulation. And what it does is it allows your brain to reprocess, which is, building a new belief system, building new neural pathways. It's profound.
It really is. I would say maybe about 8 years ago. I mean, as we know, it's always a process. There's always the work to be done. We keep growing, we keep healing, we keep working through trauma. But I will say, when I experienced EMDR, I think I did 9 or 10 sessions with my therapist. The triggers, what used to trigger me to have panic attacks or to just spin out, they went away.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And what's beautiful about that is, if you have like a small T trauma, you were bullied, or, you were told you were stupid, you could work it out in 8 sessions. Mm-hmm. If you have like a real complex trauma, big T trauma, sexual abuse or violence in the home, or living through a catastrophic event, you would need more sessions. But as the sessions carry on, you start to feel the triggers start to subside. And those triggers are, when they're less reactive, you can do deeper work. And so it's really a miraculous process. And I actually give practices in the book for how you can do some safe EMDR through journaling and with the EMDR music. And I give a lot of these resources so that yes, I do recommend every step of the way, try this therapist, try the somatic experiencing therapist, try an IFS therapist as you carry on throughout learning my journey. But I also give you the tools that you can do in real time safely for yourself to introduce yourself to these modalities.
Yeah. And I love that because you have 9 different transformational things that you can do to heal and work through trauma. And all of them are very attainable, which is what I love, because a lot of times people are like, simple things like, how do I even start meditating? But the way that you guide people through in your book, anybody can do it and anybody can overcome the trauma and healing. And I love how open you are also about your own mental health. And I think that's the biggest thing a lot of people don't want to talk about is, I've gone through situational depression. I grew up with a schizophrenic mother and stuff. She had depression. But I love, your conversation about having postpartum. Do you mind talking about that? Postpartum depression?
Anything I wrote in this book, I better be reading.
Yeah.
So I was now at this stage in my life, I'd remembered the trauma. I was well into my trauma recovery. I was 4 months postpartum. I'm in the backseat of my car with my 4-month-old, and my husband's driving us to brunch for Mother's Day with my in-laws. And I'm in the backseat, and then I say under my breath, I want to die. Mm-hmm. And I meant it.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I just got chills.
Yeah. And we're sitting at my mother-in-law's kitchen table, and I start crying, and my sister-in-law is consoling me, and my mother-in-law comes up to me and she says, every new mom has anxiety. And I said, this isn't just new mom anxiety. And months and months and months went by suffering with extreme panic attacks, agoraphobia, depression, insomnia, and suicidal ideation. And the way that I was trying to fix it was through meditation and through prayer and through ashwagandha and melatonin and this holistic path that, one, I was brought up with, and two, I've lived and breathed this wellness industry because this is the world I've been in. And many of my fellow authors would have very quickly kind of shunned any other idea for healing. So the possibility of needing any kind of psychopharmacological support was totally off limits to me until I hit my massive final bottom, at which point my therapist had to intervene. And she got my husband on the phone and she said, you need to see a psychiatrist immediately. You're having a biochemical condition. Mm-hmm. And you can't meditate your way out of this. And then I got diagnosed right on the spot. Within 5 minutes, she's like, you have postpartum depression, anxiety. I didn't realize that anxiety is a form of postpartum depression. Well, I want to just make sure I really drive home this one part of the message, which is that she gave me a prescription for an antidepressant. And she looked at me and she said, listen, I know you're resisting this. And I kept being like, can I just be on the lowest dose? All that bullshit. And she's like, I know you're resisting this, but you've done so much beautiful therapeutic work and spiritual work. And this medication will give you a safe baseline to go even deeper in your trauma therapy. And she was right.
Yeah. Should not be a stigma about if you have to take a prescription drug. Of course, we all do. I get a lot of questions because I work a lot in the meditation space and fitness and working out to heal your mind and your body. But if there's a moment when you need a prescription, you should take it. As long because obviously, Gabby, you are doing the work.
Yeah.
You're like, I've done everything.
I realized that I was actually unconsciously part of the stigma. I'd have audience members say to me, I'm super depressed or I'm super anxious and having panic attacks. And I'd be like, try this meditation. And when someone's going through a biochemical condition, like postpartum depression or suffering from PTSD, and their brain is in hyper arousal and extreme suffering, and their being is in extreme suffering, it's like saying fuck you to them to just be like, oh, just meditate.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah.
Because in those moments of acute crisis, the meditation is not going to work. It's when you get to that safer baseline, whether it be through medication or maybe something else, you can actually start to really feel the soothing benefits of the meditation. But to be very clear, I didn't just take the pill and just numb out. I went real deep, 3 therapy sessions a week. I used the tool. I used the medication as a tool to go really, really, really deep and to retrieve the little girl who was abused and bring her back to safety.
So are you still on the medication?
I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was pregnant.
Yes.
3 months ago with the 5.5 months pregnant. And I stayed medicated through that. I lost the baby. Oh, I didn't lose the baby. I had to let go of the baby because he was not getting what he needed. And I was on the medication through that pregnancy because there was no way in hell I was going to let myself go back into the postpartum experience. And then I stayed on that medication when I lost the baby.
I was going to say,
really grateful to be medicated at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. That's got to be, I can't, I say the word heavy, but I don't know that experience. So I would imagine you have been going through now more trauma and more healing that needs to be done after that.
You know, I'm understanding grief in a new way, but I'm not going through more trauma because, yes, it was a very traumatic event. And I think there's definitely EMDR work to be done around memories and experiences from that.
Do you have any advice? Because I actually get a lot of messages from mostly women on how to handle grief. I mean, obviously the tips in your book, but specifically grief. And I have a lot of friends and just everyone during this past 2 years losing a lot of
I can,
loved ones.
for the first time, listen, I think there's 2 types of grief. There's grief from loss of someone or something. And there's also grief that is often at the final frontier of our trauma recovery, or at the, towards when we start to really heal, we have grief over the loss of our innocence. And that's really what I write about at the end of the book. But as it relates to grief over a loss of a loved one or a loss of a baby or a loss of a pregnancy, or even a job or a romantic relationship, that kind of grief must be done slowly. You can titrate into it and then check out if you need to. I noticed right away in my early days following that loss that I was totally checked out. And because of my trauma recovery work and my training in internal family systems therapy, which allows us to look at the parts of ourselves that want to protect us, instead of letting that protector, that part of me that dissociates, which is a form of protection, instead of letting it, take over and just like make me check out and get back into like workaholism or something, I was able to witness it and say, thank you. And say, thank you for doing your job. I need you right now. And when I'm ready to let you relax, I'll let you know, right? But I needed that dissociation so that I could be in it, in the feeling for a moment or an hour, and then go back out of it. And if I faced it all at once, I would have been rocked, just totally rocked. And so I believe that grief is something that we can feel into and then we can check out of, and then we can feel into and then we can check out of it, because it's very, very painful to just sit in it. You have to allow yourself to have the moments of relief along the way. And sometimes those moments of relief may just be watching a show or just checked out or doing something that maybe you otherwise wouldn't do, but you just need to do it in that moment to feel like you can get through.
Yeah, I agree with that. For someone who has experienced grief and is in that grief, sometimes there can be a guilt for being in that grief because those around you maybe don't know those emotions, those highs and those lows, and those moments where you do just need to go sit in front of the TV. You need to escape. You need to sit in silence. You need to go do something, or you then need to cry. And I think a good message to everyone out there is just let those going through grief, let them flow through it, and just be there as a hug and a hand to hold and say, I'm here for you. You don't have to understand it.
And don't question it. A lot of my friends, they were worried about me. So they're like, are there things you need to feel? And I was like, oh yeah, there are, but I'm not there right now. Right now, I want to talk about your baby, or I want to talk about, and I did. I wanted to hold my friends' babies, and I wanted to, God, wanted to hold. My grieving process also looks like this.
Hey, I get it. That's why I have 5 Pomeranians.
Yeah. I got a kitten. I got a baby. I bought a baby.
Is it girl or boy?
She's a fancy baby.
She's very pretty. She's very pretty.
She's my baby. I mean, she's in the studio with me right now. She's an angel reincarnated to support me at this time. I promise you that.
Yeah, I believe that. Animals are very healing.
I was in the hospital about to do a D&E, which is an abortion, to let go of a child that was alive in me, which is so horrific. And I was on the phone with the breeder, like, hey,
get me an animal.
And he's like, I'm putting you in front of everybody. And I'm like, thank you, man.
So I think a lot of people listening, I like how you talk about why most people feel stuck. And I think the hardest thing is getting past that stuckness and feeling like so many don't know like what the first baby step is. Do you have advice on how to break out of your stuck patterns and to get into the work and without feeling too much pressure? Because I think with all of these tools and these tips, everyone just kind of is like, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah. Well, I help the reader begin. In the first 2 chapters, it's really about why we run and becoming brave enough to wonder. And so I have an inventory kind of system in the book that's like 3 questions you ask yourself in a row over and over after each trigger. So you notice what triggers you.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was like when things got out of control at work. And then you notice how you feel. And I would say I feel outraged and I want to fix everything and I feel extreme anxiety and hyperarousal. And then you notice how you run from the feeling. And so my way of running from the feeling was to try to control the shit out of everything, take over, get in charge, boss woman comes up, So as you start to take note of your triggers, how you feel and how you run from those feelings, you begin the inquiry of why your patterns are the way they are. Why, not even necessarily why, but that they're a pattern. That it's not just, oh, this is who I am, but it allows you to see it as a pattern. It allows you to see it as a feeling that you might be running from. And that's just a very gentle way to help the reader begin the process of witnessing their feelings, witnessing their triggers, witnessing the feelings, and witnessing their behavior with compassion and understanding.
Yeah.
Awareness is a big part of it.
Yeah. And I think it's really good to talk about how just being aware and recognizing, not being afraid of it. And the reader is like, I think awareness and the presence is so important in the healing process.
It's so interesting you said presence and awareness, because a lot of this book also takes, in one of the chapters, I have a chapter called Reparenting Yourself, where I take the work of my friend, Dr. Dan Siegel, and my new friend, I just interviewed him yesterday on my podcast.
Best friends now.
We're friends now, though. And I interviewed, I took some of Dan's work and the parenting methods that I was practicing for my son, and I turned them on myself. And some of the greatest parenting techniques are really being present and aware.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up the reparenting. It's something that definitely a lot of us do not do enough of. I've had to do a lot of that in therapy. Can you explain more about what reparenting is?
Well, my way I've created this model of reparenting for myself and for my reader is literally taking the profoundly transformational parenting methods that I learned from the work of Dr. Dan Siegel and then applying them on myself. It was in 2020 where we're like, my husband and I run our business. We've got 20 employees that we're, financially responsible for. So you feel that pressure, right? And then you've got your little 3-year-old, your 2.5-year-old at home, and you're like working, napping, picking up, all of it. It was, I can't even believe we all got through that, parents, And I started reading I had this stack of Dan Siegel books that were gifted to me or I purchased when I was,
I love him, by the way.
I was on the middle of the night, live for him. And I finally got into them and I started reading them like rampage. I was like, No Drama Discipline, all the books on presence and just showing up and the power of showing up. And I just started getting into it because that's not what I experienced as a child at all. Not at all, not even slightly. And so I was committed to giving that to my son, but very, very quickly in the process. And I was also writing this book, right? So I'm in this process of writing this book and being really conscious and aware of what I didn't get and that what I want to give to my kid. And very quickly realizing, well, wait, why can't I give that to myself? Why can't I be, do the 4 S's, what she has. It just says, safe, seen, soothed, secure. How can I help myself feel safe? And some of the methods in the book, like a heart hold or a breath practice, and I share all of it. And how can I help myself feel seen? And that's, just like writing passages in my journal about how much I celebrate myself and my recovery and just the minor moments, right? And how can I soothe myself? I can make sure I practice sleep hygiene and I do my therapy sessions every week and I ask for help. And then that creates a secure environment for me, little Gabby, and all of her parts. And so that was just radical for me to just turn those parenting methods that were working so well with my child. You turn on those methods genuinely and they just change everything. But they really work when you've lived them for yourself.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've written notes to my little girl and helped raise the little girl who didn't have a mother. And it really, reparenting, and I imagine as a parent, we don't have children for various reasons, but just...
So you have fur babies. You do have children.
I do.
And I never understood that until now. Like this little girl on my lap right now, she is my baby. Like I'm going away for a week and my husband, and she lives in my office, which is across from my house. And my husband won't let her in the house yet.
Oh no.
But I mean, I'm here all day, so she gets a lot of me. But she's my baby. And I'm like, really, I'm like, oh, my son can ask for what he needs, but she can't, And so these little fur babies, they are our children. They're our angels.
Well, I actually have 5 Pomeranians and I do have a cat. So, which my husband doesn't like in the house either.
Pomeranians. Holy mofo. You got a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot. I feel like I could keep talking with you. I have so many questions, but we can leave it for another time.
No. I have at least 12 more minutes.
Oh, awesome. Okay, this is going to be totally random. And you can answer it or not, but I wrote this down earlier because I'm so interested, especially because you're talking about you'll have what you need for your mental health and the prescription that you're on now. But there's this, and being a sober person, what is your thought on the current psychedelic therapy trend?
If you'd asked me several years ago, I would have been kind of shaming and I would have been like, I'm sober and like, I don't believe in that. And now I'm like doing more research and really talking to my therapist about it. I'm very intrigued. But I want to really go on the record saying that I think there's a lot of ways that these new modalities are being used without the right care and consciousness. So if I were to recommend anybody to look more into the psychedelic approach, I would say make sure you're doing it with a trained therapist who has a model that they're following, not just like some random guy that calls himself a shaman. Okay.
Yeah, I know, because I'm reading a book, A Dose of Hope, on that, and I think we've had a similar background of abusing these certain drugs.
Exactly. Because I know a lot of sober people out there now, personally, that are doing a lot. I keep twitching my eye because I've got like an eyelash in my eye. So don't call me crazy. That was actually a chapter in the book.
Yeah.
So, no, I look. I'm a very outspoken person, so I'll just speak loudly. I think that there's so much interest that I have in the MDMA trials that are happening and all the work that's happening there. And just to be super clear, you cannot be on antidepressants when you do that work, nor would someone let you. But I'm definitely, I think I really do believe that may be something I try out in the future when I titrate off my meds and when I'm super ready for when that's the moment for me, because it's pretty fascinating. ayahuasca would not be something I would do because I never liked being that, did not like that feeling. I did not like that.
It frightens me. I've never done it.
Yeah, I was a cocaine addict. I needed to be in control,
Yeah.
So I think that the thing I am worried about is I see a lot of people doing these journeys and, meeting with random shamans and people that just name themselves a shaman and doing ayahuasca. And that makes me nervous because I just worry for the folks that are, one, I worry about people's brain chemistry. If they're just like, if these are the kinds of things that are meant to be done in very, what is it, like 1, 2 sets, like not a lot of sessions. These are supposed to be like very temporary experiences that can have profound change on your brain. But the therapy that I've trained in internal family systems therapy is one of the modalities that is used when people are doing these kinds of treatments. And so I'm all for it, but in the right hands.
Yeah. I will just say I asked that question because I've found myself being very judgmental about it, but maybe I don't know enough about it just because I used to lose my mind in all of those drugs back in the day to hide or run away from trauma. But I'm opening my mind. I can't say that.
I think that it's I was just like, I was like, nope, I'm sober, blah, blah, blah. But I think that there's, when you hear it from your therapist, like my therapist who's like super straight laced and, knows I'm 16 years sober, like very, very, very protective of my sobriety. And she's like, telling me about the results that occur in these one-time treatments. Like, and saying, like, this could take you, to the next level of recovery. I'm like, I might have some buy-in there, So I don't know. I'm open. I absolutely want to learn more. I also, really love the work of Gabby Bernstein, and I believe in his trauma work. And he's a huge proponent of this psychedelic healing. And so I'm just staying open to what that looks like.
Open to everything, attached to nothing. I think that was what Dr. Wayne Dyer said, right? But
well, I just want to thank you for bringing in Wayne, because Wayne was my mentor and a very dear friend and a figure in my life that was extraordinary. And whenever I get a Wayne Dyer quote coming through, I know he's there. I know he's saying, we're good. Let's keep going, girl.
I love that. Keep going. I mean, you have done some powerful work. And I know from what I've seen your work over the years, how many people you've touched and how many lives you've saved, and people look up to you and your mission of bringing spirituality to everyone. We need more Gabbys in this world. So, and your book comes out February 22nd. So are you going on a book tour or what's your plan?
2/22/22.
I know the numbers. Yeah.
Somebody buys this book before the 26th, they get a free full day workshop with me on the book. So that's cool. And so I've got this like virtual book event, right, that people from all over the world can join. And I'm not particularly going on a book tour, but I am starting to do live events again, which is like, whoa, I haven't done a live event in 2 years. I'm going to be on a real stage in March, and then a few real stages in March. And that's kind of bananas and exciting and terrifying at the same time. Not terrifying, just it's, a muscle I haven't used it in 2 years.
Yeah, I know. I didn't do it a long time, and I just did something. You've worked with Deepak. I was just in Mexico with him on a main stage, like live events again. It feels so good. It's amazing.
Feels good, right?
It does. It really does.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited about it.
So, Gabby, where can everyone find you, find your book?
Go to deargabby.com/happy days to learn more about the book and get the resources for the book. And then you can check out my podcast, Dear Gabby. So if you want to be workshopped by me, you can tune in and we have live recordings. And then if not, and you want to just listen and be supported by my coaching, that's the show. And that's me. That's where I'm at Gabby Bernstein on Instagram. And yeah.
Yeah, I love the podcast that you did on Dear Gabby. I think it was May 2021 for Mental Health Awareness Month, where you had a big discussion with several people surrounding mental health. So check that out. Go to the pod. And thank you, Gabby. Thank you for all the beautiful work you do and making this world a better place.
Thank you, sister. And thank you for what you're doing. This conversation is the most important conversation to be having about mental health. So God bless you.
The big silence. It's time to sing.